Hello, welcome back. On this episode, we're going to do Luca, a film that we have already watched, but we're going to do a rewatch. And we're going to talk briefly about things we're going to look for on our rewatch, and then we'll have the song interlude, of course, and then we'll come and watch the film and come back and, like movie magic, we'll have watched the film and talk about how our opinions have changed or evolved since then. Will, is there something that you're looking specifically for on this rewatch?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure what I'm looking for exactly.
Just like you too, Bono, I still haven't found what I'm looking for.
I think so. I think those are the exact words. I do know what the feeling I'm trying to address though, which is I don't know if the film is like good.
In what sense?
I'm not saying it's a bad film. I liked the film, but I liked it in like the most shallow way. Like I liked it because it gave very basic pleasures. You talked about how it almost reminded you of like a Ghibli film, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if it's trying to do that. If I agree with you, but then if it doesn't go far enough, or once again, if it's exactly what it is, and I'm just being a Scrooge about a film that's perfectly pleasant in every way. You know what I mean? Like
Because I remember watching it, and like we do this thing where if there's something slightly off about a film, we'll sometimes talk about, oh, maybe if they had done, this bit better, if they had done this scene, if they had this line inserted, if they had done just one extra minute of like character building between characters, sometimes that can help a film out. And we were saying that, I remember saying that for Luca, because the film goes out of its way to break the Pixar mold and do something that Pixar has never done before with Luca, it's hard to really know or even like gauge what you could have done differently with Luca, because at every single plot point, they're doing exactly what they want to do, which is a simple story that's non-intensified, if that makes sense. There's nothing in there where it's like super intense action sequences. There's nothing in there where people's emotions get so extreme that they become like erratic in their behavior. It's all very naturalistic in kind of how people respond to situations.
Yes. So we both just watched the film Wolfwalkers by Cartoon Saloon. I think many of the plot, like the beats in that film, were actually kind of similar to Luca's, I suppose.
Interesting.
Especially when you get to like the end, I suppose, as far as identity and pointing at someone, accusing them of being, a beast, and betraying them. It's like the more I don't know how to put it, like
more polished, finished version of it,
maybe, or punchier version. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Because of course I sat and watched Luca and said, oh, I would have changed that, or I would have changed that. But at the very end of the day, I realized, or actually not even at the end of the day, just watching it occurs to you, just kind of strikes you that, yeah, they could have changed a lot of it, but they didn't want to. They didn't want to be more intense. They didn't want to be more gravelly or violent, or cut too deeply. It just, that's not what the vision was. Is the biggest thing that is really striking to me. So it's
maybe a matter of personal taste, because I really enjoy Luca, but it's not like my god tier of Pixar films, because there's something about it. Like I'm also rewatching this film to try to figure out what it is, that doesn't elevate it to me to being like the best of Pixar. One thing I'm going to be looking out for personal reasons, is I'm kind of curious about the queer narrative interpretation that this film received. Like if you just Google Luca, is it a gay on Google?
Gay.
Don't community. It's not being kanjong. You immediately get a lot of big media companies asking that very same question. Variety, Polygon. And Polygon actually has an interesting take on it, which I'm not 100% sure I agree with, but their take is, regardless of what the creator, in this case Pixar, because Pixar of course denied, and Disney denied, that this was ever intended to be a gay relationship, a queer narrative. Polygon argues that regardless of what what the author intends or the artist intends, it's actually about what the audience or viewer interprets or makes of that story. Which, for me is a situational thing. Like, I don't think you can ever say, like, artist intention does or does not matter more than audience reaction. I think it is, to me, I don't think that's a blanket statement. I think it's a case-by-case basis. So for me with Luca...
Well, what you're asking really is the theory of reader response versus the theory of formalism. Truly, which is, are you actually going to dignify the text on its own terms, or is that really an irrelevant sort of way to view a film when it lives and exists in a world that is very interconnected and very opinionated? It's always been opinionated, but now freely opinionated.
And so I'm kind of struggling with that, because at the end of the day, it is about two kids who are they're way too young to even be thinking about, like, romantic relationships.
I'm not sure how old they are, actually. They may be at the age where they have crushes. I think they are.
I mean, crushes, certainly, but I think, the film...
I don't think it's going to be some kind of heavy... what's the word I'm looking for? What's the old-fashioned way of saying it? Mm-hmm. Heavy petting. Some kind of weird, PG-13 Pixar film. Yeah. No, it's not going to turn lustful.
But here's the thing that I do know, and I can say confidently off the bat. The film is about otherness, going from one world to another, and feeling like an outsider, and feeling like you're an outsider even within your own community, but still feeling an attachment to that community you're leaving behind, because it's where you were raised, it's where your family is, and you don't want to sever all those bonds completely. And then moving to the new community, in this case from the ocean to the villa, Luca experiences this connection with someone who likewise feels like an outsider within their own community, Alberto. And so that base narrative itself is very queer. It's a very queer experience of moving from one, oftentimes geographic location, to another, and still feeling like you're not part of the world until you meet someone or something or a group of people that helps you feel like it's okay to be yourself.
I mean,
so like I do want to put out there that there are queer coded story elements in Luca, and they do that thing that I really hate. Beauty and the Beast, the live action one, does it, and I could probably name some other ones. I'm pretty sure Star Wars does it too, where like everyone's celebrating and the main storyline is finished, and then at the end, the gay person in the closet comes out and they have a very, very, very brief romantic spark with another gay character, but a gay character we've never met before, like Beauty and the Beast, for example. You have
the live action.
The live action, you have Maurice, Josh and Gad all of a sudden like having this romantic dance at the end in the ballroom, and it's like, come on.
Well, I thought that was absurd because that's like 10 seconds long, which they can cut in any release, and so the point of it was just to amuse the Western world.
Yeah. The reason I hate it is
virtuous.
because they're trying to appeal to the gay community without actually doing anything to deserve it.
But that's what I'm saying. It's virtue signaling, but it's a 10-second version, which you can literally delete. This won't be a difficult cut at all.
And the reason that in Luca it feels different, because they do that at the end. They have the two female characters who turn into their sea creature form. And it's kind of like that same vibe, right? Where it's like they probably are together, but we're not 100% on that.
Oh, that's an interesting way to look at it. I mean, maybe.
But it's the idea of coming out of the proverbial underwater closet, right? And this film kind of feels like it has enough queer encoded messages where it actually makes sense for those two female characters at the end of the film. But I'm also still wondering if maybe I, like so many other people on the internet, are reading too much into it. If that is, like, should I trust Disney Pixar when they say this is not intended to be a gay narrative? or queer at all because it is.
Oh, you're saying, in other words, what you're saying is in a more enlightened era, the 95-year-old Pixar people are going to come out and be like, oh, it's exactly what we were doing.
Right.
But for instance,
I'm trying to figure out
Yeah.
if this film is intentionally putting those queer coded messages in there and then like trying to like hide it somewhat so that they don't have to say it explicitly.
Mm-hmm.
If we're reading into it too much, versus how much simply because there is more queer narratives out there
Mm-hmm.
that's influencing companies like Pixar, like Disney, where the story of the base story of queerness and coming out, I guess, interpretive flow when we watch a story about otherness and then moving into a new community and becoming part of that world.
I mean, when you think of The Matrix, for instance, right? People have talked about how it reminds them of some sort of transition, monumental existential transition of themselves, right? Especially these days, they've turned it around and they talked about it being a trans narrative, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, with the actual, transitions of,
The Wachowski siblings.
yeah, exactly. It's added, a new dimension to it, right?
Especially with, like, was it
whether
Lana?
it's some literal cryptic story that they didn't want to.
Wasn't it Lana who explicitly said, "Oh yeah, when we wrote that, we were purposely putting in like," or is that am I wrong about that?
I'm not sure actually. I know the conversation that you're referring to. I'm not sure if it was explicit as that. Like it was just like, oh yeah, it's exactly what we were doing. I'm not sure if it was or if it was. You know what I'm trying to say?
Or if it was like retrospectively that Wachowski was like
looking back on it, it's very clear to me what I was subconsciously doing, right?
Yeah.
You
We'd have to look that up, but
yeah,
I get what you're saying, that because of The Matrix being as big as it is, we do look at stories now and go, oh, is there some kind of subtext that we're missing or supposed to be aware of?
And this once again goes back to just kind of the archetypal question, right? Is when you're dealing with these sort of structures, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are people reading into your structures to see what your true motivation are, or are you truly being archetypal? Right?
Yeah.
Like when you talk about oppression, right? When you tell a story about the about the execution of witches in
What?
in
Where did this come
in
from?
New England,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. It's a witch hunt.
Yeah.
The idea of a witch hunt has become so archetypal that
No, that's my point. Is that it's just an archetype. Don't worry about it. I'm certainly not talking about the 1950s.
Crucible, Arthur Miller.
Yeah, I'm saying this is just an archetype of of oppression. I'm certainly not referring to some specific decade of American history and the darkness that's descending upon us with McCarthyism or anything. It's not a parable of some sort of modern plague that's afflicting the government. It's just kind of, or the public. It's just it's general. It's I certainly have no general motivation. I just decided to write it. You know what I'm trying to say there, right? Like sometimes you write these sort of archetypal stories because of how obvious they compare against a certain world, right?
Right.
Or a place in the world, right? But I think that to be very clear, what I'm saying is that I think the Crucible endures because it can transfer it to modern applications, right?
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Oh, sure, and
Because it's not too specific. Because I think like Animal Farm, right?
oh yeah, Orwell.
I think it's so on the nose, it gets outdated fast. Whereas I think 1984 largely is going to have this sort of classicalness that continues. Like once again, you can read Animal Farm and always bring up
if
fascism
you wanted to be
of
really
1940s.
cynical,
Yeah.
what if you're really cynical? You can make a theater production of The Crucible and set it in modern day. And each of the characters represents a different social media account.
Ooh.
And so it's attacking cancel culture.
Well, honestly, I could see that, to be honest.
More. You have like the guy being killed by all those stones on his stomach.
Ooh.
And it's like more. He's like Twitter, the troll or something, and he's being crushed by all the dislikes, and he's like, more dislikes.
He says more dislikes.
They just changed all the lines to be like hashtags and stuff like that.
He goes full on PewDiePie and just screams more dislikes into the
Oh my
into
gosh.
the crowds.
Well, I think I told you about that. I wrote about this before, but like during Trump's presidency, there was a theatrical production during the election, I should say, during the 2016 election, of Julius Caesar.
Oh, Shakespeare in the Park.
Shakespeare in the Park, yeah.
Yeah, exactly right.
And they made Caesar Trump, and then they had all the Congress people stabbing Trump / Caesar in the back, and so it's like, you know, art is very versatile in that sense. That
It's also very provocative, right? I mean, luckily they didn't stop the production, stare into the audience, and say, "Do it for real."
I mean, then I think that's a criminal offense.
I think that might be.
If they literally turn to the audience and say, "Kill this man," like, but it's a play. It's Caesar. It's just Caesar.
It is Caesar. It's but they didn't want to leave the archetype up to chance, right? Of why they were staging it now, and so they made it very literal, right? They prance out an unmistakable Trump figure, right, with his beautiful red tie that flows almost all the way down to his ankles, you know.
So anyway, I think to wrap back to Luca and why we want to rewatch it. One is I think we want to look at it as how is it breaking the Pixar mold, how and why, and to what effect. And then B,
Is it good?
Is it good?
Is it even good?
I mean, I can answer that. Yeah, it is a good film. I
Oh.
enjoy it.
I mean, you enjoyed, Ice Age 3, so that doesn't really tell us much.
I mean,
Being likable isn't a good bar to set when we're talking about good. Well, unless it is. Is that what you're going for? You're just saying like, oh yeah, I liked it, and you go, yeah, I guess, and then that's that.
I guess what's your definition of good? Like, what do you mean good in this sense?
Well, that's the problem. Is that good is as useless a word as like.
Okay, fine.
Sometimes I like a post because I like the idea behind it. Sometimes I like a video because I thought it was a valuable insight, even though it's a terrible thing that's happening in the video. It's like, oh God, Will, you liked a video of a car crash, you devil of a mind. It's like, I think it's a valuable video because the news station did a lot of effort to get there to the scene and videotape it. I like the news video. They're like, oh, you're such a terrible person, Yeah, all these people who like this video are horrible people, right? It's like, and that's why Facebook now has like, sad faces and angry faces, right? Instead of just pure like.
Oh yeah, I remember the days when you would feel really awkward for like liking someone's like post that's like tragic or sad or like bad depressing news.
Yeah.
And then you'd be like, you can only like or dislike this. Do I dislike it because it's bad, or do I like it because I'm trying to support them?
Right.
And then that's kind of how I actually feel about Luca. Is the sense of I need more emojis to that more accurately express how I feel about it.
It is completely possible. I can honestly see this happening. Is that they'll create a system that's similar. But the problem though,
like Netflix,
ultimately,
the Netflix like and dislike doesn't entail sometimes how I feel about a film.
The problem though is if you create too many buttons, is that people are going to use it for whatever they want. If that makes sense.
Well, hopefully when we rewatch Luca, we'll get it properly.
For example, if Disney Plus put out a like, dislike, angry face, and a laugh face, right? And then they looked at the and then they went and looked at like the the results after a year of like the Fauci documentary and noticed that everyone has angry faces and laughing faces. Do they think like what are they going to take from that? Are they going to say, oh, I think they think that it was a barrel of laughs. Or did they think it was laughable, like in a
comic
fake news kind of a conspiracy way, like oh we really hate this guy and everything he stands for, he's laughable. Or did people put the laugh face because they just really loved the film so much that they just laughed at how much they enjoyed the dry documentary about the life of Anthony Fauci? I mean, well, I don't think it's exciting his life. I mean, I'm sure it's
That's so mean. Dude.
I don't think his life is very interesting. It's probably admirable, but
That's so mean.
Well, am I missing something about his life? Did he, you know,
I'm just working off the basis that Fauci is a person and a person's life is interesting.
No,
like,
no, I disagree considerably. I think.
Wow.
No, I mean, no, I disagree completely.
Not everyone can be Stephen Hawking.
I agree. But even like the life of Stephen Hawking, the actual life, right?
The day-to-day life.
I mean, I liked the film. You didn't like
No,
the
not
film,
every person's life is a day-to-day craziness of like Gravity
point.
Falls, you know, having cartoon Rick and Morty adventures every single day of their lives.
No, but I mean, like, no, that's kind of what I'm saying. Honestly, yeah, is you get certain people whose lives are very. You can dramatize them and they're fascinating to watch, right? And then you get other people who they're interesting because of how terrible a burden they had in their lives, right?
Okay, I want you to say that again and then realize we're about to watch Luca.
Well, hold on. I'll get there. Maybe, I suppose. You have... It can be a challenge to depict what goes on in people's lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially psychologically. So the easiest access to it is talking about the triumphs of people, right?
Yes.
And especially when it's sexy, the achievements.
Okay, yeah.
You know, like, cool
yeah.
Sexy, not necessarily sexy, right? Like cool, right?
Yeah, no, I understood what you meant the first time. You didn't need to explain that.
So like a war hero, it's very cool, right? It's obviously cool.
In the sense that something happened that
was exciting. Is exciting to watch. Once again, it's terrible in the moment, right? Mm-hmm. It's absolutely horrifying, obviously. But watching in a film, right?
Well, the Hurt Locker kind of cool. Gets at that,
right?
The Hurt Locker gets at that.
That film takes a dagger to like the war film, right? Mm-hmm. Well, that's a weird way to put it, but like.
Well, you could have used grenade, and I was like, oh.
Well, that would be very inappropriate, but. No, it deconstructs the war film in a certain sense, right? Because it's exactly what you're saying. Like, I don't know. It's difficult to describe exactly because, of course, we're dealing with the irony of that war is a terrible, terrible thing, but it's very exciting to watch in a film, right?
I mean, it's the same reason why people pull out their phones when they see a car crash happening.
Yeah, I think so, right? But like even modern films, you still feel that because the thought for a very long time was that war films would cease to be fun when they become really visceral,
Mm-hmm.
Like if you think of old films, I'm trying to say, right? Like you see an explosion and then they just kind of die, or that's it,
Mm-hmm.
But then you hit at some point really visceral film. Of course,
like Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, well, sort of.
How violent that can get.
Yeah,
I'm talking about like historically in terms of like for the time.
Yeah, but what I'm even thinking of is the standout, which is Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, okay.
Which is you get people who get shells right through their head, right? So there's no face left, right? It's that, it's that visceral, right? Or people, their leg has been blown off and they're searching for maybe they hold their leg up, right? It's just blood and mass, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's very, very gory, right? And people would...
But not like a horror slasher film where it's supposed to be like, ooh, thrilling. It's like you're supposed to be horrified
right.
by like what you're seeing and like, God, why am I watching this even?
Exactly, right. But of course, even for those kind of films, right, I get the feeling that the old theory is wrong and that people find it thrilling, right? Because it's not truly real. And maybe in an even more dark way, right, people find whatever, whatever it is thrilling, right? Maybe, right? Or, I mean, the same people who love, like, all the slasher films, right? I don't know.
So I guess, like, yeah,
in a certain sense.
This all started...
Oh, no, okay. I just denigrate people who love slasher films. Maybe we'll edit this out, but what I'm trying to say is that it takes a specific set of mind to endure that just sort of being like, oh yeah, this is just a film, right?
Well, I think on the flip side, if we're looking at the other end of the spectrum, then I think it takes a certain kind of person to appreciate maybe a film like Luca, where their greatest achievement is very mundane. It's a winning a local bicycle race through town, and I think you're talking about how like interesting people's lives it's often correlated with the sense of their greatest accomplishment itself is cool or interesting. And I think talking about in the sense of Luca, which is about kids, and they haven't lived that long and they're not doing interesting things because, again, they're kids in a small town. What is their most interesting achievement from a film sense? And I think maybe that's what makes the film different. Now I'm wondering, before, like now that we're sitting here talking, now I'm wondering if that's what makes the film different is because their greatest achievement isn't that cool in a sense. And that's the point of the film, though.
Well, their greatest achievement is that they're fish people.
That you can't, your greatest achievement can't be that you're simply bored.
Born or made.
Jeez.
I mean, for comparison, wolf walkers, the greatest achievement is that they're wolf walkers.
Wait a moment.
And the duty that entails.
This is going to be a whole different episode, a different conversation, but come on, dude.
I stand by it. Lupin's greatest achievement is what he tries to do in spite of him being a werewolf.
Oh my god.
I mean, maybe that's not quite right, but for instance, right? Or maybe a better example is Twilight. I should really let's toss Lupin out because he's way more of a courageous by the end of all things. But like Twilight, right? Edward, his greatest achievement is that he is not the vampire that he innately now is. He subverts it, right, by not eating his human love interest.
I thought you were going to just say human lover.
He's human lover.
Yeah.
Well, lover just sounds very illicit for some reason to me. Like, and they took a lover.
I'm going to just say though, that kind of how the Twilight films play it. It is just human lover. It is very sexy. It is just very like.
Well, kind of, because he's wicked old and she's not wicked old. I mean, in that sense, yes.
I don't know how this conversation got to Twilight, but I want to get off. I want to get off of this conversation train.
Well, you can't. You have to embrace the Twilight in you.
No, I won't. I refuse.
In the twilight of the mind, there's only Twilight.
In the Twilight, wow. Is that a Batman line?
Welcome to the Twilight Zone.
Welcome to the Twilight Zone. Instead of regular broadcast, we're just going to be playing Twilight New Moon.
I've always wanted to sparkle, but only in Twilight.
Oh my gosh. Because friendship is magic. Anyway.
Friendship is magic. Yeah.
How about we rainbow dash our way to the television?
Now you've made this My Little Pony.
Now I feel a little
Furrycon.
Now I feel a little Fluttershy.
That's not even okay. That's not even.
So we're gonna watch Luca, and we'll be back.
I don't even have a glimmer of hope anymore in this Twilight.
What a rarity.
That's ghastly. You bring such chaos to the show. Such, what's the word? Discord.
So, here's a question for you. Have you ever... Yeah, you don't have to answer.
Have I ever had a dream?
No. This might get too, personal and, too in deep.
Well, we can always edit it out. We have that
Have
power.
you, when you were a kid, did you ever have an impulse / daydream fantasy of just running away from home?
Nothing comes to mind. I find it improbable that I wouldn't have, but nothing actually comes to mind.
Okay.
Nothing big enough that I go, oh wow, that was the moment where I decided I was gonna run away from home.
I guess because I asked because I think like so we live in an area with like train shipments that go by, and we live in an area that also has every now and then shipping boats that we can see on the bay.
Oh, and don't forget the 50-foot giants. Those disrupt considerably too. They walk by and throw bullets.
But also, just in general, everyone has seen an airplane flying overhead and wondering where it's going. You know, so as a kid, you know, not.
Well, we do have, in fairness, we do have an airport that's right next to us.
That's true.
So there's a finite number of places it's going, to be honest.
I guess what I'm saying is we grew up in an area where there were a lot of public transport and like public transport that could take you far away.
You're speaking more abstractly.
Abstractly, yeah.
Not where is it going. It's
Yeah.
like, I don't care where it's going.
But no,
you mean like
but as a kid,
as a thought experiment.
But no, but yeah, as a kid, I had that impulse of. It wasn't like I was deeply unhappy or so with growing up, but I always had impulses to be like, oh man, I want to just hop on that boat just to see where it goes to by the end.
So
I want to hop on that train and see where it's going.
Just
as
to
a
be
kid,
clear,
you know, I didn't have a great concept of it's going to a specific destination. Where it's going is probably boring, but the idea of hopping on this like plane, train, boat ride and just letting it take me wherever it's going was very big for me.
You sound like that. You sound like that sort of kid in the films who shakes the snow globe of New York City, and then as the snows come down, you wistfully look at it. But you look at it at such a weird angle that if someone actually did that, it would be very strange. But then you remember that this is a film and that it's a staging thing. Yeah.
I mean, like, I remember.
Remember, it's a metaphor. Like, it's right in films. It's not, oh, it's a pretty snow globe. The metaphor is, wow, I wish I could be there where it snows.
No, but like you've never, as a little kid, opened up a closet hoping that Narnia would just be behind there, right?
You're asking me if I?
Yeah, have you ever done that as a little kid?
Just to be clear, you wanted to one day open up a closet and a full-sized male lion would just pop out.
No, there would just be like snow back there, and there would be a lamppost or something like that.
Okay, so you want a satyr, a full-grown lion, an evil witch, and beavers to come at you. Right?
Yes.
Preaching about our Lord and Savior.
They're not preaching about the Lord
Well,
and
not the
Savior.
witch. She wouldn't preach about the Lord and Savior. She would talk about all sorts of Antichrist things.
But they gave me candy.
Like yeah, you know, like down with the, I don't know, down with the lion, booed the lion. It's written in the book of time that I can slay you. And then he's like, bitch,
Wow.
I wrote the book in time, and I came before that book. So
I feel like you're crossing over into like A Wrinkle in Time.
I don't think so.
I'm just saying that like as a little kid,
Yeah.
as an adolescent.
So this is what you wanted. You wanted to open up a wardrobe. Instead of finding your clothes,
yes, a very big part of me
wanted to find
yes,
all that Christian stuff just popping through like a glass menagerie.
a very big part of me did, yeah.
Like an actual menagerie. What am I talking about with glass? An actual zoo of Jumanji coming through your wardrobe.
Maybe not Jumanji because that never seemed fun, but
Okay.
like Narnia.
So you want to go into it and the zoo is there. Yeah, okay. You
Yeah.
want to swing your sword and chop centaurs' heads off. I don't know exactly what happens there. Crazy stuff.
The point I'm making
Terrible
is that
stuff.
I'm wondering if I can just relate to Luca a little bit better, simply because of the idea of.
So you see yourself as like Luca on the train, correct? Like you in other words, when it comes to Narnia, you want to like who would you? This is what I'm trying to ask. Like, what do you want when you open this wardrobe? Do you want to walk in there and be one of the characters? You just put yourself into being them. Do you want to be Judas and eat a bunch of sweets and betray your siblings? Is that what you always dream?
I think it would. Yes, honestly, yes. I relish the day I can betray you all just by eating some Turkish delight.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, if it's damn good Turkish delight. Well, we had Turkish delights the one time. I didn't think much of them.
I'm saying I wouldn't. No, I'm not like I wouldn't put myself in as one of the characters. Like I wouldn't be Edmund in that situation. I wouldn't be Lucy in that situation. I'd be me exploring the world,
Oh, okay.
right? And presumably the events of the books they wouldn't be happening to me because it's literally the world exists and I am creating my own narrative in that
But
field.
but
in that
still, on
world.
some level, you want the events that happen to them to happen to you, correct? Because when you're talking about Luca and going on the train, what you're really saying, right, is you would totally want to be in that train. In other words, you totally want to go to school, right?
If I was
that's
in
what we're
Luca's
talking
position, if I was in Luca's position
Sure.
where I'm a sea monster and I have no schooling, and yeah, I would go down. But
Yeah, I don't know what's going on under the sea, but apparently they have no school.
they don't have a monetary system, at least.
Well, neither did Marlin, but they worked something out. I don't know.
I don't think he had to pay. I don't think he had to pay like an entrance fee for
Well,
Nemo to go to school.
Some kind of Soviet Russia thing going on down there. I don't know.
Wow.
Well, if they don't have money, then I guess the government provides. I don't know. You tell me.
Money is a human construct, to enable
But fish have.
the powerful to prey on the weak.
Oh, okay. I see. I see. So there's no sense of like transaction going on
I mean,
in Finding Nemo universe.
you know how animals train their young and show their young how to do something? Do you think like a goat, like a mountain goat, knows how to stand on this narrow precipice just like
I mean,
from birth? No, their mama Papa goat taught them how to do that.
Maybe. I don't know. I actually
It's
don't.
called rearing.
I don't know about that particular example. Do you know that for sure?
I don't know. I'm just saying
could
in
be-
general.
it could be that
the
they know-
animal kingdom just trains their
It
young.
could be that they know it on a gut level, actually, that one. But I guess they'd have to be shown. Maybe. Who knows? I don't know.
I'm pretty sure elephants.
We could call up your good friend, what's his face, Attenborough,
Oh, David
and
Attenborough.
he could give you some sort of weird monologue in a calm, cool,
Yeah,
collected.
me and Davey are really on great terms.
Yeah. Real great terms.
I lost my train of thought.
Until you, of course, you open that wardrobe and a lion came out, and then you freaked out, right? And then you accidentally like shanked it. So not only did you murder Jesus, you murdered a lion, which that's just bad business.
That is poaching, and that is a crime in most countries.
Well, it depends. If the lion was only half out of the country, then it could have just been the way of the world. You
so
know?
am I going to get extradited to Narnia?
It's possible, you know.
Oh, okay, interesting. So the way for me to get to Narnia is if I go kill a lion, and then I'll.
Well, not some lion. You're thinking of the final battle now.
No, I have to go kill any lion. Is
No,
what
not
you're
any lion.
suggesting
You can
because
ki-
there's a.
You can kill any
Path.
lion. You can't kill the Messiah.
Oh,
you
okay,
know.
so I had to find the Jesus Messiah lion.
The figure who's
Yeah.
known as Aslan, I think,
Okay.
right?
So I'm
the
gonna-
real one, right?
So I'm going to
Choose
have
wisely.
to. I'm going to have to very Luca style go to every single lion I encounter
Mm-hmm.
and pour some sort of like. I have to pour water on them and see if it turns to wine.
Yeah, I don't know how much time you
And-
have though, because like once you get down there and you start looking at all the grails and trying to figure out which one's the holy grail, I don't know how much time you have, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? I mean, I guess you could just be down there for an infinite number of time thinking your way through it. I mean, unless you have someone who's dying in another chamber waiting for for you to pick the right cup, right?
Or you just have like 30 people in the line behind you all trying to pick the chalice out themselves.
I guess what you could also do is torture the Knights Templar dude who's just standing there
And just
to tell
interrogate
you,
him.
just to tell you, yeah, tell him, force him to tell you which one, or say if you don't tell me, I'm gonna take this, goblet and then pour it on you, and we'll see if you melt. And I mean, if he's a virtue, he probably wouldn't tell you, right? Because that's not the way you play the game of holy grails.
No, it is not.
Well, I don't know. He didn't tell me the rules, but
There was no.
all he did was just choose the right one, choose wisely.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Interesting. I want to know about that guy that got there before Indy. You know what I mean? I want to know his story.
Who?
The one who chose poorly.
Oh, I don't know. Do we know anything about him?
I don't think so. If memory serves right, he's literally just there to scare Indy into being like, oh God, I do have to choose wisely.
Oh, I thought it was important. Was he a Nazi, or was he just with the Nazis? Or was he not with the Nazis? I'm pretty sure he was with the Nazis.
Am I misremembering the film?
I thought he was a baddie.
Was he?
Well, I don't think he was a good man.
I don't
Do
even.
you think he was a good man? Do you think he was a serious man?
For some reason.
Had great piety?
For some reason, my mind thought that it was a character who was just like there.
Who was just there? You mean, what do you mean just there?
He like.
No.
You
No.
pull up to McDonald's and then there's a bunch of people at the drive-thru. There just happens to be somebody in the line in front of you. That's kind of what I thought was happening.
I don't think you remember the film at all.
I don't think I remember the film.
That makes no sense.
I thought he had just pulled up to the chalice room and there was somebody there in front of him. Was it an actual Nazi that got there before him?
It was some antagonistic force.
My bad.
Yeah. No, Indy is paving the way for them to come through.
Oh, okay. My bad. Oh well.
Yeah,
I would have chosen poorly.
You would have disintegrated in a crazy CG way.
I wouldn't have been there.
You may have gotten beheaded in the... Well, actually, you're very short, so you probably wouldn't have gotten beheaded, actually, in the first setup, even if you were fooled.
Most action sequences films, like The Mummy, Jumanji, I probably wouldn't have survived.
I think realistically, no one would survive any of those. It's just, movie magic luck that lets them through. Because I love the people who say, I would survive. That's so easy. How could you make such a mistake? I'm like, okay,
let's recreate this.
Let's recreate this.
I'm going to Squid Game you, and we're going to recreate some of these situations.
Well, once again, but the problem is that they themselves would know, I guess, that they were really, well prepared. All those problems. All
those traps. So you have to come up with traps of your own.
Exactly. New traps and then you play it back, watching after they die, and then you
This is getting really dark.
And you'd be like, well, that person was an idiot. And then you turn to your left to laugh at the person, but they're not there because you accidentally killed them.
I'm not sure how we got to this point from Luca, but man alive.
Or it's a wipeout scenario where they don't kill him at all, and there they are with a little bit of a bruise in their head, and they are like, yeah, I just messed up a little bit, whatever. I would have gotten them in the end. I would have won the wipeout prize of $10,000 or whatever it is. I'm the king of Wipeout.
The TV show? Yeah, I got there. I followed the leap. I'm trying to figure out a way to bring this back to Luca, the film we were supposed to talk about.
Once again, with your powerful editing skills, it shouldn't be a problem. Just randomly have someone keep talking, and then they start talking, and before long, Luca, such an incredible film. I hate it so much. It's the best film I've ever watched. If I ever saw another film that was like it, I don't know what I'd do. I'd do many things. Nothing whatsoever. Huh. What do you think of that?
Well, I think...
So...
Yes?
Do you see yourself riding the train, or do you see yourself staying in Porto Rosso? Porto what?
Porto Rosso.
Porto Rosso.
Because it's a nod to Poco Rosso. Again, a nod to the fact that this film very much feels like a Ghibli film.
I think so. Well, it's handsomely designed, no question about it. All the entire town is magnificent to behold, right? Yes.
I see myself being more Luca than Alberto, because I also understand the feeling of I want you just to know things just for the sake of knowing them, and so I feel like
you're something of a scientist.
I'm something of a scientist myself.
Yeah.
Yes. At the end of the day, for me, Luca isn't my favorite Pixar film, but I certainly appreciate it far more than I did the first time I watched it.
The one thing that's hard to assess about Luca, it always saws off its most emotional version of itself, the most jarring or funniest, or maybe not funniest. Maybe its laughs are actually completely, within its orbit. But any invitation it has to go deeper, it shirks. It's possible responsibility toward, right?
Yeah.
At the very end, you get this sort of very quick quasi-queer moral that they just kind of throw in quick, right? Which is, oh, just some people are gonna accept him and some people won't,
Yeah.
But the good part is that some people will, some people will, accept him for who he is.
Which is a little on the nose.
Yeah, it's very on the nose. And then you kind of pause and think back to how touchy-feely they are the whole film, and you go, And then you get the two women under the umbrella who pull the umbrella, and so you know that they're close. You don't know the relationship, right? But it could be another nod to this sort of vague thing that they've gestured at vaguely, but just kind of let float on. It doesn't go anywhere particularly deep. It doesn't want to go anywhere particularly deep there. It doesn't want to push people's buttons. It doesn't want to see anything real particularly cutting or interesting even. Like you even get the Julia, right? Julia?
Yeah.
Julia's father, right? Who does the classic, a sea monster bit my hand off, implying that this is a vengeance arc, right? And then he doubles back and says, oh, no. I came into the world this way is all, And it's like, so, and then you think about it, it's like, what does that mean? Oh, it doesn't really mean anything. It just is, right?
I guess the one thing I'll say on that note about, because there's a lot of audience members and reviews that talked about the quasi-queerness of the film. Where I'm not going to say my personal thoughts on if it is or isn't, but what I will note is that
I think it's undeniably built in queerness, but that isn't the same thing as saying whether I'm making a claim or whether they're gay. That just to be clear. But I think that's you can't have a moral that direct. Let's be honest. You cannot have a moral be that direct and not have that mean what you think it means.
Let me be clear. I'm not saying that because some people wanted to go as far as say that yes, Luca and Alberto are gay. Yes,
maybe.
And I'm not going to go that far because they're kids. There's no reason, in my mind, to put labels on that when that sort of thing sometimes takes years and years to fully understand for yourself and what you identify as. But what I will say is that one of the major themes of the film is loneliness. And that is, especially for someone who is closeted and isn't out to anyone, in the way that you might be a sea monster and keeping that a secret, is very lonely, right? I think a major thing that every queer person can relate to is there is a moment in your life where you feel very isolated from the world because you don't know if you have anyone else who is going to support you, love you, and for some people, there literally is no one for a moment, for a time in their lives. And if you look down the line of each of the main characters, there's a deep sense of loneliness. Luca feels like his parents don't understand him, right? And feels like he, alone in the underwater world, is the only one who wants to go to the surface and be among the humans. Alberto has a deep sense of isolation, obviously, we talked about with his father abandoning him. But even Julia, she talks about the fact that she feels lonely every summer because she has no friends here. Everyone thinks of her as an outsider. She tries to do this race because she thinks that, if I win this race, people are going to accept me. People are going to be my friend if I win this race because I'm only here for the summer.
If only I could get on Santa's team and perhaps even lead it. Perhaps all of them would love me. Perhaps they would even shout out with glee that I'm the best in history. Yeah, that I'm the best in history.
But even Julia's dad, they don't dive into this, but if you think about his character and think about what we know about him, he's probably a very lonely person too. He only gets his daughter for the summer. He's divorced from his ex-wife. He is doesn't seem to have much of a social life because he's a very kind of private, closed-off individual. they gave him
presumably divorced, but not necessarily actually.
maybe not.
It could be an arrangement.
It could be very
tough
arrangement where maybe her
if
job is like out in Genoa.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it's ever explicitly stated. I mean, it's set up very much in a divorce way, obviously, but they actually don't,
And again, like,
exactly.
I don't want to push too deeply here on my own.
But that's another thing, though, just to be very clear, is that it's like any of these things that are very serious, that they have the opportunity to, go deeper in, they don't touch, they don't even explain, right? It's like, are they divorced? Who knows? They're separated, basically. Okay. Or like, oh, look, he's a sea monster. Oh, wow, that's a big moment. Maybe he's going to get stabbed, right? Yeah. By what's his name? Urquelle. Maybe his betrayal is going to go so deep it's going to rattle the... Nope, it really doesn't rattle the rest of the film. Whatever. Or maybe she's disgusted by them being sea monsters. Nope, she's not disgusted by them being sea monsters. Maybe the father is going to be out for blood because his hand was taken by, maybe he turns into, Captain Ahab. Nope, it wasn't even that. Every opportunity it has to become more menacing, it literally introduces the prospect and then dances his way out of it. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense.
I think too, like, the reason he is disabled, that he's missing his right arm, and they have in mind that he was born into the world that way, is again because disability. Again, just speaking from personal experience. Sometimes it's a lonely experience just because you have to figure things out yourself. Like, no one can... He's a master fisherman because he's figured out how to use his left arm and his body in ways that no one could teach him, because he had to figure that all out on himself. And so the idea of him being able to understand Alberto on a deeper level that other people can't in the town initially, I think is something that you either get or you don't get as an audience member.
I think that's exactly why they did it. Is they probably came up with this idea, right, of him missing something, right, or actually no, before that even, they wanted to give him an ability at the end, an obvious way, like one that doesn't need a lot of explanation of why he sides with them, right, that goes beyond just being it's
beyond just being fatherly.
It's just Julia's friend, right? Yeah. Which I guess would be fine, right? But they wanted an extra oomph, right? And they probably walked through different reasons why that could be the case, right? And I suppose one way of doing it was to extend the concept of, as you just said, right, of having to work harder to be accepted, right? Right? That there's an extra step that you have to take. And they probably chose, what if he doesn't have, an arm, I suppose, right? Like, how'd he lose it? Someone, did a sea monster bite it off? And they probably thought about the possibilities of that, right? And then went, oh no, he just didn't have it.
But that's something else I actually kind of noticed about the town, is that they went out their way to show. There were several kids in the background. If you watch for it, who are disabled. There's a kid in a wheelchair. There's a kid using crutches.
Yeah, I saw the kid in crutches.
Yeah. And so, like, they went out of their way to show that this town, I guess, proportionally, seems to have a disproportionate amount of people who feel some sense of otherness, right? Even if we don't see them as, like, main character, even if they're not main characters.
I can see it, yeah, that way.
So just in terms of this being, is this a queer narrative? I'm going to say, yeah, I think it is. Because I think you can't have, like you said, the line that they have at the end, the message, so direct. But also the theme.
I would just laugh. I would have laughed so hard if, it was Singer at the time, and there'd be other X-Men directors, I suppose he's the biggest one, right? If he had just during like the press junket, but like, oh no, this is not a queer narrative. Of course not. And they're like, what do you mean? And they lay out all the reasons why they think, and he's just like, oh no, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't think it is.
Yeah, and I think, again, there's a difference between saying that these characters are queer versus saying that the story itself is a queer narrative. And I think that's where people got hung up on.
I think why they're hung up, though, is they know perfectly well that Disney, Pixar would not be allowed to do that. Sorry, let me be clear. Pixar would not be allowed to do that because Disney would panic. Because Disney always wants its international release.
Yeah.
and they will lose.
Without naming
incredible-
countries, there are
They
certain
will-
countries internationally that would
Yes.
not accept this film if it was very direct.
Exactly right. I don't think we're going to get a major release like that for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And when they do, it's going to be at great financial loss
I'm
to Disney.
gonna posit that that's not the case, because I think with new streaming digital services, I think you get away with being able to show that, because it's like you can not bury it, but like because there's so many
You can
different
closet it, if you will.
Narnia it. Oh, that's not what I meant. With digital streaming services, you release a film straight to your platform, and people have the option to watch or not watch it. And if you are a certain country and you don't want that film, all you do is you remove that from that country's streaming service.
I will agree with you on the condition that something transformative and, in my mind, really, really bad, right, and sad happens to the theater industry. If we see the absolute collapse of the industry because of COVID-19 and the pandemic, I think this option that you just mentioned is possible, is viable, actually, yes. But I just think, in my mind, if you spend $200+ million to create a film and you put it in theaters and you can't get it into giant markets that would otherwise be accepting, you know, if there were characters who behaved in as accepting or were themselves queer, right? I just don't see Disney allowing that. I mean, they already canceled Owl House right after the characters come out.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah. I mean, they canceled it allegedly for some other reasons. I can't recall what it was, but I can't really imagine why on earth they were. Oh, it was because it was apparent that it was not in keeping with the branding of Disney, which was the most inexplicable. It's an inexplicable answer, quite frankly, right? That can only, in my mind, truly be attributed to that they found that people were probably that censorship was probably spooked, right, in other places, right, in my mind, and that they worried about the continuing relationship with Walt Disney Company, right? And they said, okay, I guess it's time to pull the plug on this. And I guess it could be something even more simple for that show, as the ratings were plummeting or something like that, I suppose, to give them the benefit of the doubt a little bit, right? But it strikes me as extremely suspicious at absolute best. Yep.
Oh, what did you say the other night? If Luca is the...
I have no idea what I said. You shouldn't quote me when I'm drinking.
What is it? Luca is the career underwater bonanza. Little Mermaid is a straight underwater bonanza.
Oh, where she lives in the gayest place ever, and she willingly wants to be in the most hetero place imaginable.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. I did say that.
Under the Sea.